Hi, welcome back to Recipe to Revenue. I'm your host, Leah Messina. In today's episode, we're going to interview Doug Miller, who's the CEO of Wildcat Brothers Distilling based in Louisiana. Doug's going to share with us his experience of buying a dying brand alongside a fraternity brother of his when they came upon this opportunity to leave corporate America and jump into the world of spirits. He's also going to share with us how developing their unique niche in the rum industry by using local ingredients like sugarcane or woods from Louisiana that set them apart from other distillers. And he's going to share with us the importance of mentoring and how that has really shaped his career in learning things about this field and helping him along the way. Doug, I am so excited to have you here today on Recipe to Revenue. How are you doing today?
What a wonderful day. I'm excited too. Always get the opportunity, enjoy getting the opportunity to talk about my brand, but also how we get there and all the fun things that go with it.
Yeah, I think Wildcat Brothers has such a great origin story, and you're going to share some of that with us today. But let's kind of start in. I want to hear from you first about you. So let's start
Okay.
from your career and how you ended up in the food and beverage, which came a little bit of a roundabout way.
Yeah, it was definitely not a direct path. I never worked in the hospitality industry whatsoever. I grew up in Michigan. Most people in Louisiana will note that I do not have a Louisiana accent.
Yeah.
They remind me of that regularly.
Yeah. Yes.
But I moved down to actually Houston, Texas, about 30 years ago, and was looking to get into the finance world and joined a electric company, a power company, and that began what was a great career for me, 20 plus years. I was a commodities trader in the electricity and gas side. I actually got my start working for this little company that's no longer in business called Enron. And
I think I've heard of that one.
yeah, well, it's starting to be a few years. People are starting to forget about it, but it was the just like you see on the movies, the two phones, the big turret with 800 speed dials and 8 computer screens in front and yelling over the desk and all of that.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
I
high
realized
paced,
very
stressful environment.
well, the one thing I learned was I was an adrenaline junkie who could be very calm during stressful situations, and
Yeah.
so
Special
that
skill.
served me well in that environment. And I did that for 20 years, and then I was honestly looking to do something a little more entrepreneurial, something for myself. And I happened to have a buddy who called me up one day. It's someone I'd known for 25 years. It's actually a fraternity brother of mine. And we were serving on our national board of directors together, driving to the airport after an event. And he said, I got to tell you what I'm getting ready to do.
Yeah.
And what he was getting ready to do was to buy a dying distillery, something that was getting ready to go out of business, but had pretty good juice, really lousy marketing and sales, which is why it was getting ready to go out of business. And he said, I think you need to come along for the ride. Now, the funny thing is, I joke, everyone's always got that lottery dream moment.
Yeah.
Right. If I win the big one, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And my lottery dream moment was I was just going to go work for a winery. I didn't care if it was just pushing brooms, but just to be in that environment. I'd gotten to be a little bit of a wine snob over the years and never even thought about spirits, to be perfectly honest. And when this opportunity came in late 2019, I kind of rethought everything and said, well, this just might be the right pathway for me.
Yeah. How exciting. So you're driving along in the car and he suggests this. Were you on board immediately or did you get back to him like, I have to think about this? This is pretty big.
Well, at the time it was, it was more, this is what he was going to get ready to do.
Okay.
And so for the next 2 days after I got home, I tossed and turned and thought about it, and then sat down with the wife and said, "Hey, does this sound crazy?" And she said, "Yes, you should
Yes.
do it."
Yeah.
And
That's
so
when
I
you know you have
called.
a nice supportive spouse.
Very well. You can't do any business if you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got to have that buy-in, and I'm very lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
But I called him up 48 hours later. I said, "Okay, what does this really look like?" And we spent the next several days, several weeks actually,
Mm-hmm.
going over business plans, and we knew we would have to take on investors. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, I just got to the Shark Tank moment. I said, "Okay, what does partnership actually look like?"
Yeah.
And we put that together, and we decided to take the project on. We got into the rebranding. We bought a property, which we regret doing, but we bought a property. We bought new equipment.
Mm.
We upgraded the quality of the product. Certainly, a whole new look visually and the marketing side of all that. And we got
Mm-hmm.
ready to launch, and it was the second week of March 2020.
Oh, wow.
For history buffs, they'll
Yes, yes,
remember
they're
that
familiar.
very
Yeah,
well.
very familiar date.
So,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then 5 years later, we're still standing.
So you got through a lot of turmoil in that time, but you went through the process of getting this building, and which is a pretty big, overhead cost at that point. So
Yes.
were you using the building during that pandemic period, or was it just sitting there?
No, no, that was probably the hardest part, is that obviously it was a major investment and
Mhm.
and a cash drain on us. And our original business plan was, we're going to be a destination distillery. We didn't really think about wholesale, at least for the beginning. We wanted
Mhm.
to create a Disneyland type atmosphere where people could come in. It was going to be a distillery, but we still wanted to do family friendly.
Mhm.
We wanted to do events, and that was the real business model. Take advantage of the tourism within the Acadiana, the Lafayette, Louisiana area.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, we can't do that, and so we had to change our business plan at that point. Um, but yeah, it was it was an interesting experience for sure. Of course, then COVID, Louisiana opened up a little sooner
Mhm.
than other places, but in the next 18 months, the coast of Louisiana was hit by 7 named hurricanes.
Yeah.
So we went straight from COVID to hurricanes. Now, we didn't have any effects from
Mhm.
from damage or anything, but with that many hurricanes, and two of them extremely powerful, one through Lake Charles and one through New Orleans,
Yeah.
all the resources to do the renovations we needed to get up and
Yeah,
running
they're
were
all
directed
busy. Yeah.
different directions. Then by the time we could get a contractor and could get the stuff we needed, we realized the parish, it's parishes in Louisiana,
Mhm.
not counties, the parish had never permitted a distillery. And so another 8 months, we literally
Oh.
did not cut the ribbon until March of 2023.
Oh, so what was that feeling like on that day? Like, finally, we got to
It
this
was
point.
it was bad, because when we changed the distilling license from the rental place we were using to produce,
Mhm.
we didn't realize that the application had been two different addresses. So our primary address was 2601 southeast Evangeline,
Uh-huh.
but the local state license had a Suite B on it. And so 24 hours before we cut the ribbon, they pulled our liquor
Oh,
license.
no.
We just called this the
Well,
Wildcat way.
yeah, yeah, wow. I mean, I think you got the full entrepreneurial experience, all front loaded.
Yes, yes. Well, the great thing was that our state leaders really stepped in and helped us, and it didn't help us for the next day, but
Yeah,
we got that straightened out pretty
yeah.
quick. So
Yeah. It makes for a good historical moment in the company's history that you got beyond that point.
We're laughing now.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm sure you're ready to cry back then, though.
Not just ready.
Yeah. Wow. So tell us a little bit about the product because it's pretty unique as far as rum goes.
It really is. So my partner and I were more bourbon whiskey drinkers
Hmm.
and not necessarily rum drinkers. And so the Cajuns have a saying, use what you have. And we have all this great sugarcane growing all around us. The farmers are just unbelievable in the
Hmm.
product that they're producing. And and so we really wanted to do something that captured the spirit of the farm, not get in the way of it. We very much decided we did not want to be another Caribbean style rum.
Hmm.
We wanted to be something truly Louisiana, truly Acadiana, truly American. And so we went a different way. And actually some rum people will tell you we're not producing a real rum. I take uh, not exactly, I don't believe that at all. But we're using raw sugar.
Hmm.
So the most common rum is made with molasses, which is a byproduct of the sugar making process.
Hmm.
There are other people who use the juice, the very beginning part. It's an agricole. We're taking it to that next step after the agricole. It's that very first step in producing sugar.
Hmm.
It's raw sugar. It's unrefined. It's brown. It's moist. It's going to bring a little bit of the soil, the terroir, into the product, but it's not going to be as gamey or as green as just the pure juice.
Hmm.
Um, so that makes us very unique in that we're doing that. But the second
Right.
thing that makes us unique is that we're doing open air fermentation.
Hmm.
Why that makes a difference is you're bringing in the local airs, the ambient temperatures, and so we only use three ingredients: raw sugar, water, and yeast.
Hmm.
That's it. Very important to us. No chemicals, additives, sweeteners, no nothing. Um, and because the more we add to it, the more we get away from that great
Sure.
natural sweetness. And so by using open air fermentation before we distill, and we distill it up to 8 times, so it's a
Hmm.
cleaner product, but it almost on the nose gives a smell like a tequila.
Ah,
And
interesting.
when we did this at first, we said, "Oh boy, we messed this up. We made a
Yeah.
tequila." And we're kind of nerds in the regard that we like to
Hmm.
go into the science,
Yeah.
and so we shipped it off to a couple different places, and they came back and said, "No, Doug, it's actually not a tequila smell; it's a fermentation smell. It's just you're making your product the exact same way tequila is made because they're
Hmm.
using the agave sugars,
Right.
water, yeast, and an open air fermentation." And it's fired to get those sugars, just like the cane is. He goes, "We just think of it as tequila because that's the only place we've ever smelled it."
Ah, okay.
And so, much like that, citrus is what really makes our brand pop. And
Hmm.
so we like that in that regard. And then we also do some barrel aged products. Our most common noir is actually aged in a used bourbon barrel. And
Hmm.
so it gives a little bit of that bourbon-esque up front while still maintaining a nice natural sweetness. We use different woods in
Hmm.
our aging process. We'll use hickory, persimmon, cherry, pear, plum,
Nice.
that we have access to all those woods locally.
Hmm.
Everything we do, we harvest within 50 miles of the distillery.
Wow.
And then we have a spiced rum that we didn't really want to make. We weren't fans of spiced rums.
Uh-huh.
Most are done with chemicals.
Yeah.
And so we
The
said, oh, if
market
we do,
demanded it.
the market demanded it. And the market is always right,
Yeah.
as they say. And so we wanted to do something that didn't have a competitive set.
Hmm.
So we took high proof versions of our white. We created 5 different infusions using cinnamon,
Hmm.
vanilla, coffee, black pepper, and allspice. We let them seep for a period of time and then blend them all together. And it produces a very, very nice, mild spiced rum. On the nose, it'll remind you of Grandma's house at Thanksgiving.
Nice.
But
Perfect for this
it's
time of year.
really, yeah, it's really become a very popular cocktail at restaurants because there's so much you can do with it.
Yeah.
With the coffee in it, espresso martinis. When it's 150 degrees here in South Louisiana for 10 and a half months.
Yeah.
I enjoy making mules with it because it plays really well with the citrus and the ginger beer. And of course, this time of year, you get up into Michigan, New York, and all those great
Yeah.
cider places. It's just fabulous with that. So
Yes.
it's really
By a
become a
nice
fun.
fire.
Absolutely, it's become a fun product for us. So
Yeah. Wow. So, you've done, so much in really relatively short amount of time when you think about
yeah.
it. And how did you, coming from, a commodities background and you had some, interest in the wine industry, but how did you overcome that hurdle of how do I know this industry now? How do I know how to distill? And did your partner have
Yeah.
experience distilling at all?
We hired.
Mm-hmm.
We've had three distillers at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Each has brought something new to the game. Each has taken what the previous has done and improved. We've been very lucky in that there's always been overlap. We've never lost someone and then had to scramble to go find
Mm-hmm.
someone. So
Yeah.
so there's always been a good. In fact, the second person who distilled for us is still a consultant for our team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's probably the key because you can do whatever you want, but if you don't have good juice, it doesn't matter what else you do.
Yeah.
You've got to make a quality product. So that's always mission one. But learning the industry, that it was tough. We
Mm-hmm.
made a lot, and look straight in the mirror on this.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. We knew we were a small business, but we didn't act like it. We act like we were
Mm-hmm.
corporate because that's where we
Yeah.
came from,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a mistake. Um, that took a couple of years to really overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, during that COVID period, we were scrambling so much rather than following a plan
Yeah.
that maybe some of those lessons took a little bit longer to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was finding mentors, and I don't think it really makes a difference what industry you go into. If you don't have those trusted people, whether inside or ideally outside your organization, that you can just talk to and sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's sometimes that you're frustrated and you just need that voice of wisdom. Other times it's just like, hey, how do you do this? And I've been very, very lucky. I've had several people who had been in the industry for 20, 30 years in different capacities, that I've become very good friends with, that I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what I'm seeing happening. And it's kind of fun now after 4 or 5 years. Those same people will pick up the phone and say, Doug, what are you seeing?
Yeah.
And I still and I get a kick out of that because I still look at them
As your mentor.
as still those role models and those
Mm-hmm.
mentors. It's but as recently as last week, I was on the phone saying, "Hey, I need to pick your brain,"
Yeah.
and I think that's important. I really do. It's you get so lost in the trees
Yeah.
that you're not seeing the forest. It's
Mm-hmm.
good to have someone who's a step or two back that can kind of give you maybe a more broader sense of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's great advice and really for any industry. But, when we're looking at the food and beverage space, you do have a lot of people that come from different backgrounds into this field,
Hmm.
and bring their area of expertise. So those that have succeeded in a very competitive space and have had
Yes.
success, I mean, there's such a wealth of knowledge. And I think you've mentioned to me that you experienced this as well, but just it's the people in this industry are just seem to be very open and willing to help and share their knowledge and experience. So
very much so. And a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's risen to the president level
yeah.
or the vice president level and all that. I get just as much advice from meeting a bartender and talking to them to someone who's actually waiting on the customers. The boots on the ground, the people who are actually selling my product, the liquor store salesperson, it's, and I like the fact that I talked to all of those people and take all of their advice in. Because sometimes it's different perspectives. If I'm talking to someone who's 30 years running a business, it's probably going to be a little more commercial. If I'm talking to someone who's maybe been behind the bar for 2 years, but they're seeing this trend, I mean, that's actionable advice right away.
Right.
That I can
super valuable information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How much of your, week to week do you think you spend in that relationship part of your
Not as much as I would like. Small business, everyone wears a lot of hats. And so the joy for me is actually getting away from my computer and into the field. I would say I probably spend 3 or 4 hours a week in direct mentor-mentee relationship conversations. I try to spend at least a couple days in the field every week. And those are the days that the phone gets turned off and I'm just forward facing with customers. And then, unfortunately, because of all the hats, it's as an entrepreneur yourself, you know this very well. It's there's never really a turn off switch.
No.
You're whether you're with your family, whether you're out doing something, in the back of your head, it's like, I've got this thing I got to get done, or this or that. And maybe, like on a Sunday yesterday, maybe I only got in front of the computer for an hour to do some quick hits, but I mean, you just never turn
you're always
it off.
just chipping away at that list, or, brushing my teeth this morning. I'm thinking of, how many podcasts that we have coming up before the end of the year. So it's always just in your brain, and just,
how am I going to get through them all?
Exactly. I mean, I'm very excited for all of them, but as everybody's going through, it is a busy time of year to wrap up everything.
It is. My industry's a little bit different in that, as a supplier, after Thanksgiving, we'll pretty much shut down. Our retail will still operate, but from our wholesale business, it's pretty much done for the year. And that was another thing having to learn, is everyone talks about OND, October, November, December, in the spirits business, but really as a supplier, you can forget about D. No customer wants to see me in December.
Like, we are on hold until January. After the new year.
So this is planning time for us. So
that's
whereas,
you need that time. That's important too, because it's the whole start of a new year.
Very much so. Very much so. So we're already working to line out our production schedule to fulfill orders that we have deliverable for next year already. So,
So you moved into the CEO role, and beyond the items that we were just talking about, I want to touch upon how you're growing the company and expanding, because obviously you have a really good foothold in the Louisiana and Texas area. So how are you going about growing the brand beyond that region?
Yeah, great question. A little bit of data here. One of the things that I did pick up is that most small distilleries never make money. If they do, it's usually after about 9 years. And the reason it's after 9 years is because the ones that weren't ever going to make money finally just gave it up. And so that's always been very on the front of my mind, is how do we beat those odds? How do we make money before year 9? And as we were talking earlier, starting out with COVID and then all the other things and having to change the business plan all around, when I took over the role as CEO in February of 2024, the first decision I made was we're going to strip everything back and we're going to go back to our original game plan, which was focusing on retail, focusing on our backyard. We had gone out to a lot of other states just to kind of stay alive. Michigan being our number one state outside Louisiana, New York right behind it, Kentucky and Georgia, and there's a few others that we do some business in. But really the focus had to be, let's get smaller to get bigger. Yeah. And so we didn't ignore the out of state operations that we had, but we certainly scaled back on those and didn't put as many resources into them and put a lot more resources into our base business. Now, what that did, I also had another immediate decision that if it wasn't nailed down, we were going to sell it. So we had some barrels sitting around that we really didn't know what we were going to do with it. Nope, we're going to make decisions. We're going to get that stuff out. We're going to sell it right away. And so, but putting everything back into the distillery, we were actually able to grow our business by about 70% on the retail side. Wow. Our wholesale business last year actually went down, but we knew that was coming. And that I'm a data freak. I'm constantly looking at numbers. That goes back to the commodity trading days. And so we knew that from a supplier standpoint, the wholesale markets were going to be bad last year because everyone had built up inventories through the COVID years. And so they were now getting back to right sizing their inventory levels, which good for them. But as a supplier, we're the last to be adjusted and then get back into that. So we knew that was coming. And then we planned for 2025 to be a little more even in retail versus wholesale. We've actually just had our best year ever, with still another month to go. And actually we made money for the first time this year. So in year 6. So,
so you
long as I don't
9-year,
so long as I don't mess it up in the next 5 weeks. But I'm feeling
all
pretty
right,
good.
You can do it. You can hold on. No big expenditures.
That's right. And so, I jokingly, I'm a race car fan. And one of the analogies I like to use is sometimes you got to go slower to go faster. And that was really a conscious decision we made last year. Going into next year, we're adding a little different level to our business where we're doing a lot of private label stuff. A company or individuals come in and say, hey, I like your product. Can you create a product for me, or maybe put a unique label on one of your existing products so that I can give it out to my friends or colleagues or work. And that portion of the business has already started to take off.
No, that's great. I was at a networking event last week, and a gentleman there, we're all saying, oh, what do you do? What do you do? And he said, oh, I have my own whiskey brand. And somebody said, oh, you do? And then he pulls up a picture, and it's, his last name on the bottle. And I knew it was just, he had gotten a private label, and he's like, yeah, I have a couple of cases of it. But the person that we were chatting with thought that, he had a whole distillery and everything. So
we had one customer order almost 700 cases for next year.
Wow. Well, they have some busy plans.
Big company. Very big company. So that's going to be fun.
That's a good order.
But I'll tell you, I've got more of the customers that are like, can I get 12 bottles?
Yeah.
And we like those just as much.
No, it's a great idea, and it's great for the marketing side to be able to hand that out to people, and especially when it's good product. So
got to start there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in all of that, there's so many things that you were mentioning that I kept wanting to come back to, but I think the thing that I want to turn to next is the locality of the business community, and how, it's sort of like a sidebar to mentorship, where you had talked to me about how the Louisiana distilling community or the spirits community there has really kind of come together, and having
Yeah.
gone through so many things together too, between the hurricanes and all
Mhm.
that. Like it seems to be a little bit unique environment. Do you feel that it's unique to Louisiana, or is it something that you see in this industry?
No, I see it. I see it throughout the industry. When we travel to other states, other distilleries, small and large, tend
Mm-hmm.
to roll out the red carpet. It's
Mm-hmm.
always fun to bring a couple of our bottles somewhere and taste some of the behind the curtain
Mm-hmm.
stuff other people are doing. Louisiana is a very unique culture to begin with.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like Louisiana anywhere anywhere across the U.S.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of wonderful places, but just the culture is so different there. We have, I believe, it's about 30 distilleries in the state of Louisiana of
Mm-hmm.
various styles. There's only one of those that is actually corporate owned. All the
Okay.
rest are privately owned.
Yeah.
But even the corporate owned one,
Mm-hmm.
is still very much part of our community,
Yeah.
with the people who work there. But we had an event that we have every year as a fundraiser for the old Capitol building in Baton Rouge, and
Mm-hmm.
it's called the Spirits of the Capitol, Spirits of Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the distillers come in, and usually it's the CEOs, the chief distillers. It's not necessarily the marketing people, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
a big homecoming. Is
Yeah.
we all get to see each other. So what'd you come out with new this year?
I know. It's so
Hey, you've
exciting.
got any extra barrels you're not going to use that you want to sell off? Or hey, we
Mm-hmm.
just did this. You want to trade barrels and do something unique with what you have? Or
Yeah.
hey, I'm looking at going online for sales. Who have you used and all that? And
Mm-hmm.
everyone is just like, oh, I've got the right person for you. Let me give you that information. Let me give you this information. And I think we all do things just a little bit different, which
Mm-hmm.
maybe makes it a little bit easier to kind of be cheerleaders for each other.
Sure.
But I have two thoughts: is that I don't understand why there isn't a rum distillery on every corner in Louisiana, as
Yeah.
there's only two places that grow sugar cane in the continental U.S. is Florida and Louisiana. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii also,
Right.
but you know, it just lends itself to that process. Um, and so it, with everyone doing just a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
it yeah. It's just
You really
it
can
makes
support each other then, like.
You really can. And
Yeah.
most of us, we really stay in our own lane too. Is
Mm-hmm.
like, one of my very good friends, he makes a rum, but he also makes a vodka, and that's his
Mm.
primary. And he dabbles in
Yeah.
in a little bit of whiskey. And another good friend right down the road is making a fabulous bourbon
Mm-hmm.
out there. And people say, well, Doug, why don't you get into the bourbon industry? Why do you just make rum? And that's, I'm going to go back and say, well, Cajun culture of use what you have. So
Mm-hmm.
we want to use that sugar cane. But number two, there's enough other people making really good bourbon and whiskeys, and
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of stick to our lane, and that's kind of that,
Right.
staying small to get bigger.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that philosophy too. And it's funny because I don't know if this is a 2025 thing or just where we are in our economy thing, but I've heard that now. I think like two or three times in the last couple of weeks. But I think it's kind of hitting home for people. Uh, when you own your own business and you're trying to survive, eh, things tend to get pretty complicated and complex, more than you really anticipate it to, because you're
Yeah.
trying to keep the business afloat, and then all of a sudden, like you said earlier, you're in all these different states and managing all these relationships. So I love your idea of just, we're going to get smaller to get bigger, because you can really refine what you're doing, excel at it,
Mhm.
And then you're really ready with that, playbook, so to speak, if I'm talking my
Yeah.
marketing language, to go forward in like, okay, we're going to be the best at what we do. We know our selling point. We know that we have the best sugar cane with that's unique to our area, the wood unique to our area, and it's not going to be something that somebody can really replicate. So
I think the scariest thing is trusting your playbook.
yeah,
A playbook isn't designed for overnight success.
right.
It's for organic, long-term development and growth. And let's say it's a 3-year playbook,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in month 6, and it's like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I need to
Yeah.
be. It's really trusting that process, and we always have to tinker a little bit, obviously. But
Sure.
if if you trust the process and you know it's a good process and it just needs time to build,
Mm-hmm.
give yourself that opportunity. Don't beat yourself up as why isn't this happening quicker.
Yeah.
It's a step-by-step process, and you just really have to trust that.
Right. Yes. No, that's an excellent point as well. Do you have plans still to turn the distillery into this, as you called it earlier, Disneyland of rum?
We do. We're actually possibly looking at a change of venue,
Mm-hmm.
something that would get us a little bit more front and center in a downtown
Mm-hmm.
environment. And so we kind of have hopes of that happening in the next year. And if that does happen, that really will drive the retail and the experience and
Yeah.
such. And we're working with a local community that they are looking for an anchor to their tourism district, and
Oh,
so
perfect.
there's a lot of good meshing there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we like to put on an experience, whether that's a
Mm-hmm.
tasting experience, whether that's an entertainment experience, whether that's different events and such. We have a really good role model on the brewing side in the area that's just doing wonderful things
Mm-hmm.
with his facility, and it's very encouraging to watch. I also think that in the industry I'm in, if you're not taking advantage of that
Mm-hmm.
retail opportunity, you're really missing a lot of margin. It's very tough
Mm-hmm.
to do this just on a wholesale basis.
Sure.
And so, what are you going to do to have that customer come in not once or twice a year, but 5 or 6 times a year and feel like they got a different experience? And
Right.
through that experience, they say, oh, well, rather than going to X store to buy the product, I'll just pick it up here.
Yeah.
And of course, the one thing that I did learn in all of this,
Mm-hmm.
I was always, why does the wine I buy more expensive from the winery than it is the
Yeah.
retailers?
Yeah.
As I quickly learned, that having not come from this business, is you never want to undercut your retailers and
Right.
all of that. So there's always a few extra dollars built into that so that they can be under
Mm-hmm.
your price.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a learning lesson too.
Yes, that is a good reminder, and speaks to the importance of what is that environment that you're creating to have that experience that makes it also worthwhile.
Hmm.
There's sometimes you go on, tastings or tours, and those are memories people can have for years and years to come, and just such a powerful word of mouth opportunity that
Hmm.
you know you're down in Louisiana, you should go do this. And going back to the community there, if more and more of you are doing that, then
Hmm.
it really becomes such a powerful tourism angle for a whole distillery tour from place to
Right.
place. So I love that idea. I fully support you guys going down that path.
So, well, it's a lot of fun. It's sometimes I have to pinch myself and say that, hey, I'm actually running a distillery, and
Yeah.
it's the business of happiness, as we like to say,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a motto of celebration, and the thought is, don't wait for the big stuff to celebrate. Celebrate as often as possible,
Yeah.
even if it's just getting through the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to reward yourself with a
Hmm.
little rum over the rocks
Yeah.
and do so
Small wins are still
responsibly.
wins. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I had a friend over at the distillery the other day, and he's over on a very, very regular basis.
Hmm.
We got to the end of the day, locked the doors. We were just going to chit chat and have a little fellowship for a while.
Hmm.
And I said, like, "Hey, you go grab a bottle. You know where it's at." It's
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of like, well, that's kind of like my second home now. So it's
Love
like,
that.
you've been here too often. You're not a guest anymore.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Building those moments of appreciation. Just, I mean, from a, living perspective, it just makes, you can enjoy your day more, you can enjoy your life more. And, you know, it's definitely
Yes.
worthwhile. You have to celebrate them. All right. So as we come down to wrap up our chat today, which has been so insightful to see how you've built this brand, from a dying brand to this thriving rum brand that has such a unique angle. And I love everything that you said about mentorship, and it's just so important to hear that. Um, you know, I want to hear too, and you may kind of lean back on some of the things you've said, but if you can sum it up for those that are listening, what has been your recipe to revenue in this business?
Yeah, the I think the biggest thing is persistence.
Hmm.
Um, we made so many errors getting started, but we believed in the business, and we had to make so many changes with some of the circumstances brought to us. And yeah, you're right. I am going to lean back on the one. Um, I think the defining moment for us when we decided to get smaller, get great at at fewer things rather than good at a lot of things. I read a book many years ago called "Built to Last,"
Hmm.
and a lot of those principles, even though this book's now probably 30 years old,
Yeah.
is just so important. Are you why are you building your business? And the recipe for us is that we're not building it to necessarily sell it, although we're not dumb enough to turn away a great
Sure.
offer, but
Yeah.
but but we're building this to last. And so understand what that means. Focus on the organic
Hmm.
growth. Don't worry about the, hey, we're gonna discount everything so that it shows that we have a whole bunch of orders, and we're gonna fake out people looking at our growth and all of that.
Hmm.
No, let's just step by step, organically build it and be great and build it to last.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, excellent advice there. And it's you know, never say never. You never know what the future is going to hold or who's going to come knocking, but
Time has taught us that one over the last
yeah.
5 years.
Certainly, certainly. But yeah, at the end of the day, whether that comes or not, either you're building it to last for yourself and,
Mhm.
your employees, or you're building it to last to make it for somebody else to carry it on and, you know,
Yeah.
take it to whatever heights they foresee. So
I have a seventh grader who I'm already teaching the operations to. He helps me
I love
bottle
it.
at times. So
Yeah, get them started young. Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. We just don't post pictures of 12-year-olds bottling.
Yeah, that's maybe that goes into the archives as a
That's right.
story,
That's
but
right. But
that's not like
help.
social media material.
No, no, but it's a great dad
Oh
moment.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. I love involving my kids in the business. And actually, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day too about, they go to school and they learn what they learn in school. And then
Mhm.
being children entrepreneurs, they get a whole different education here and being exposed to what happens in our office. And I'm happier about that. I'm happy that they get that kind of life lesson in a different way.
Yeah, I
So,
grew up in that same environment, and some of my
yeah.
fondest memories growing up were spending time with my dad at his business, and so I
Yeah.
try to do that with my children also.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a pleasure. And just for everybody again listening, just tell them where they can find you online, in person, if they are in the area.
Yeah, so the easiest way to find Wildcat Brothers products is to go to our website. We are actually, I think, one of the few people that or few companies that actually updates their map of where locations are.
Very helpful.
Another hat
Customers,
that I
thank you.
wear,
Yeah,
and
valuable.
then you can order our products from our website for
Mm,
delivery at home or office all across the country. So we'll ship to everywhere but Utah and Michigan. I'm sorry,
yeah.
but that's the federal government, not me.
Yep, yep, yep. Got to find a friend in a neighboring state and take a road trip.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
great.
But and next time you get close to Lafayette, we'd love to host you. We love to host everyone that is interested, and come visit our Disneyland distillery.
Ah, fantastic. Well, I will take you up on that, Doug, and thank you very much for joining me today on Recipe to Revenue. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.